I think I'd probably start from the number of truths universally acknowledged that there are about leadership and professional services firms. Firstly, things on the whole have been pretty good for the last 2 or 3 decades. That's fed into a pretty powerful status quo bias on the part of many professionals in those organizations. It's also, I think, led to the formation of quite a strong professional bias that the core skill of the accountant, the lawyer, the engineer, whatever it may be, is really the sort of prized commodity within the organization, much more so than the management engineering. And those things together tend to lead to relatively slow acceptance of change. I think the other truth or set of truths universally acknowledged is when you're trying to lead change efforts, there are people at different stages every time on the adoption curve. So you've always got your early adopters, you've always got your people in the middle, and you've got your change resistors at the end. This leads to a set of tactics we're all familiar with in driving change within that environment, often trying to put through a burning platform kind of mentality in advance of any change, identifying our champions for any effort, and then using a bunch of influencing tactics, whether it's social proof within the organization of, this type of project has been a success with this team, why don't you guys take it up, to bringing in external expertise. It might be non-executive directors, might be advisors, to help promote the idea that you're looking to support. Incidentally, at a personal level, the managing partner or equivalent figures style is going to be very important in these areas. I personally don't believe, and I certainly don't claim to be one of, the sort of super charismatic business leaders within professional services who just through sheer force of personality can build $100 million business, take it to the market, do all kinds of things, just getting everybody to fall in line with their ideas. It's a much more sort of political influencing process, I think, in many, many cases. So I think those are the sort of, that's where we sort of start. What we've got now is this sudden shock across the sort of political, economic, social, technological area caused by the pandemic. Even before we went into that, there were an awful lot of drivers of long-term change, whether it's Brexit, whether it's tech and AI adoption, whether it's new entrants to your particular market. But the last 8 to 10 weeks, I think, have dealt a very powerful, almost visceral series of messages to not only the leaders in these firms, but also the clever, experienced followers, if you can call them that, within the firms. So I think a couple of things. One is just the kind of profound depth of emotional experience that people have gone through over the last couple of months, so radically different from what they're used to. And that's led to a powerful sort of habit disruption. Both Francesca and Andy were talking on particular dimensions of that, whether it's the way you engage with your team, with your clients, with your wider network, and so on. And I was very interested, Richard, to see the slide that Rohit's going to use next week, in which he styled it as aftershocks and opportunities. That's the big picture view of how things might change. It's possible, though, things could slightly slip back to the old normal in some ways rather than the new normal. But I think I'd lean much more towards the view Rohit's going to give us. So this is very profound. This is going to make things very different. So a few sort of practical thoughts that flow from that by way of conclusion in my short section. Firstly, the old maxim about never wasting a good crisis is highly apposite at this point. There are lots of things you'll be wanting to do for some time. Now is the time to get on with them. You've got to make a bet one way or the other on what the future is going to be over the next 2 or 3 years. We can't afford just to hedge during that time. You need to make sure you've got the right skills on your leadership team. What got you here, as they say, won't necessarily get you there. You need that big picture vision, and you need it sold across a consensus of people within the firm. And finally, I think the most important thing for individuals on this call is you will probably have to adapt your style for the next 6 months, the next 12 months, very differently from what it was from the last 2 to 3 years, potentially being more visionary, more directive, even that little bit less democratic and consensual across the partnership. And